Hello everybody, this is Mr. Combs, and in this video I want to talk about a third type of poetry, lyric poetry. When poets desire to express personal thoughts and emotions rather than tell a specific story, they write lyric poetry. Harman and Holman define a lyric poem as a brief, subjective poem strongly marked by imagination, melody, and emotion, and creating a single, unified expression. Saphir and Daniel tell us the word lyric is derived from the ancient Greek lyrikos, a short poem that was sung to the accompaniment of a lyre, a stringed instrument. And you can see the lady in the illustration playing a lyre. That's what a lyre looks like. Over the centuries, the lyric has lost its musical accompaniment, but it still is concerned with expressing personal thoughts and emotions. Lyrics usually have a single speaker, and while narrative elements might be present, Pickering and Hopper state the lyric poet never concentrates on the story. So the most important thing in a lyric poem is the emotion being expressed. Let's look at the following poem by Alice Walker. It's an example of a lyric. New Face. I have learned not to worry about love, but to honor its coming with all my heart, to examine the dark mysteries of the blood with heedless heed and swirl, to know the rush of feeling swift and flowing as water. The source appears to be some inexhaustible spring within our twin and triple selves. The new face I turn up to you, no one else on earth has ever seen. So notice this poem doesn't tell a story, but it expresses emotion. In Walker's poem, what do you think has caused the emotion being expressed? I think it's a new love, right? A new feeling of love, a new love interest or a new lover. And I think this might be an unexpected love, because at the beginning, the speaker says, I've learned not to worry about love. So I interpret this as I've learned not to go looking for love, to go out and seek it, but just to honor its coming with all my heart. The nature and effect of the emotion, as expressed in the poem, I think, is one of surprise, but then also one of feeling new, right? The speaker says, this new face I turn up to you, no one else on earth has ever seen. So with a new love comes a change in the person, right? The person is no longer who they were before this new love entered the person's life. So notice that the most important part of this poem, or the most important aspect, is the emotion that is expressed. And that is a lyric poem. Several different lyrical forms have developed over the years, and I want to go through a few of those now. The haiku, which developed into an esteemed poetic form in 16th century Japan, traditionally consists of 17 syllables and deals with subjects from the natural world. Haiku written by the great Japanese masters are rhymeless and arranged in lines of 5, 7, and 5 syllables. Modern haiku written in English can be rhymed and do not strictly adhere to the 17-syllable requirement. However, as Kennedy and Gioia state, what English haiku do try to preserve is the powerful way Japanese haiku capture the intensity of a particular moment, usually by linking two concrete images. So remember, we talked about concrete language and abstract language. Haiku usually focus on concrete images, images from the natural world. There is little room for abstract thoughts or general observations. in a haiku. In other words, all writers of haiku focus on the outer, literal world rather than the inner world of feelings and emotions. For instance, consider the traditional modern haiku below. So this is a traditional haiku, the falling flower. The falling flower I saw drift back to the branch was a butterfly. So notice here how we're focusing on the outside world. We're not thinking about the inner thoughts of the speaker, right? We're connecting the image of a flower with the image of the butterfly. And now consider this modern haiku, which does not adhere to the syllable requirement. The traditional haiku does. But this is by Allen Ginsberg. Looking over my shoulder, my behind was covered with cherry blossoms. So that notice that focuses on one image. It focuses on the outside action of the speaker, not the inner thoughts. But the speaker looks over the shoulder and sees that his behind, I'm going to assume the speaker is male since Allen Ginsberg is the poet and he's male. In this instance, I'm going to assume that because I don't have anything in the poem that suggests otherwise. So when he looks over his shoulder, he sees that his behind is covered in cherry blossoms. So he relates his body, looking over his shoulder, looking at his behind, to the natural world, cherry blossoms. So he's connecting to concrete images. Another type of lyric poem is the sonnet. And the sonnet is a 14-line poem following, according to Harman and Holman, one of several set rhyme schemes. It developed in Italy during the 13th century, and we say there are two general variations of the sonnet form, the Italian sonnet and the English sonnet. So the Italian sonnet is also known as the Petrarchan sonnet because, as Harman and Holman tell us, the Italian Renaissance poet Petrarch in the 14th century raised this sonnet form to its greatest Italian perfection. So an Italian sonnet is usually divided into an octave and a sestet. So remember, an octave is a stanza of 8 lines, and a sestet is a stanza of 2 lines. I'm sorry, not 2, 6 lines. So the octave presents a story, states a proposition, or asks a question, and then the sestet comments abstractly on the story, applies the proposition, or answers the question. The switch in focus between the octave and the sestet is usually referred to as the volta. And volta means turn in Italian. The rhyme scheme for an Italian sonnet is usually A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A for the octave. The sestet can have any number of rhyme schemes, including C, D, E, C, D, E, C, D, C, D, C, D, or C, D, E, D, C, E. The English sonnet, on the other hand, sometimes referred to as the Shakespearean sonnet because it was used by William Shakespeare, has 3 quatrains, 4-line stanzas, and a final rhyming couplet. The rhyme scheme for an English sonnet is usually A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. According to Pickering and Hopper, the 3 quatrains of the Shakespearean sonnet often present 3 successive images, actions, or arguments, which are then summed up in a final epigrammatic couplet. In an English sonnet, the volta is said to occur between the last quatrain and the ending couplet. And I use the word epigrammatic there. An epigram is basically a short pointed, and witty statement, often in the form of a rhyming couplet.